Sometimes it's not always a negative thing to be in that response. So try and look at it as at least your body is having a response to something, because that means that that thing is important, regardless of whether it's anxiety or an excited response. Your body is responding to it, so therefore it must be important to you.
If you're not going to concentrate on the task at hand,
You'll get
you
more.
simply get hurt.
Yeah.
You're gonna get tapped. You're going to let the dominant position, and it forces you to be in that present state.
State of anxiety is the same bodily response that you have when you're excited.
And we're in. Okay, Rupert, so you said you got an idea for this episode.
Starting it, yeah. I wanted to start with a simple breath work.
Do you want to turn into me?
I'm going to turn into you.
Feeling a bit
Sorry for all the listeners that are listening, currently moving the chairs a bit.
feeling alone.
So I wanted to start it with a simple breath work technique, and you're welcome to follow along for those that are listening or watching it as well.
Why are we doing it?
So the reason why this works kind of well is because I'm going to read off a little bit because I want to be able to pronounce the right thing. But this is what I wrote, is you're switching your nervous system from a sympathetic nervous state to a parasympathetic nervous state. A parasympathetic nervous system state is associated with what we call rest and digest, and a sympathetic nervous system is what we call fight or flight. So if you're feeling in a state of anxiousness and a state of, nervous, kind of that feeling of like panicky, this method that we're going to go through is what you're doing is you're kind of bringing your heart rate down and you're bringing your breath rate down. And the reason why that's so important is the breath is a modulation dial between your autonomic nervous system. So it's basically a dial between that sort of parasympathetic state and your sympathetic state. And sort of if you're bringing your breath rate down, what you're doing is you are reducing your breath rate per minute, and your heart rate per minute will then relax, which will then help the brain to stop dumping cortisol and adrenaline into your system, and you'll start to chill out. So that's why with this specific style of breath work is we're going to be exhaling a bit longer than when we're inhaling for. So there's lots of different breath works that you can do. You can do what's called box breathing, where you're inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and holding for 4. Or you can do a simple Wim Hof method, which is that sort of like
hyperventilating.
But this one was an interesting one. It was basically an inhale count for 4, pausing for 2, exhaling for 6, and holding for 2.
Okay, 4, 2, 6, 2.
So so I can get the timer on.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's a couple of things that I'll do afterwards as well, which helps me kind of get into that zone. So
calm down.
Starting with that inhale for 4.
Okay, let's do it. And how many rounds are we doing it? 4?
We'll just do it, 3, 4 rounds. 4? Yeah. Okay. So again, you're welcome to join in as well for those listening. So inhaling for 4. So holding for 2. Exhaling for 6. And you want to exhale through the mouth. And then holding for 2. Inhaling for 4. Holding for 2. Exhaling for 6. Holding for 2. Inhaling for 4. Holding for 2. Exhaling for 6. Holding for 2. And then last round. Hold. Exhale. And then hold for 2. And I think that's a really good way to sort of like...
definitely feeling...
Yeah, you just feel that sort of drop in breath rate, heart rate. your brain starts dumping all of that adrenaline and cortisol, and that's, and sort of going back to it, just sort of going back over it, that sort of breath is the modulation dial between that sort of parasympathetic state and your sympathetic state. Sympathetic being fight or flight, parasympathetic being rest and digest. And I think whenever you're in that feeling of overwhelmed, anxiety, feeling really stressed out, it's one that I do, is just stop, breathe, remember to breathe, using the diaphragm, using the belly, get that breath back into the system, because that's just one that's free, first of all, and one that is already...
Sorry for kind of, I'm feeling proper calm now. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, right? Like...
zoned out.
And another thing I really like to do as well is sort of within that state of breathing, I imagine myself sort of sat breathing, and then I'll zoom a bit further out, sort of above myself, and then I'll zoom further out, so I'm like above the building, and then further out of the city, further out to the country, further out to the world, and then you sort of look at everything as like, we're so small.
Really?
So it's just one that kind of just really grounds it. And then I just open my eyes, come back into it, and I'm like, cool, let's start.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So that was just one that I kind of thought was like, coming into the podcast with that sort of like straight away, let's just get the breath. And
that sounds as well, because we cover practices on how to overcome anxiety, and I feel in this day and age, we have so much of it, like anxiety of at work, anxiety in your relationship, anxiety of your finances specifically, with all the costing livings going up. And I feel like it's important to have at least that 10-15 minutes a day to actually wind down and get back to yourself and actually feel yourself and forget about the worries and
Hey guys, thank you so much for making it this far into the podcast. If you have any feedback, then please let us know, as we always want to make this podcast better. So hearing from you is always a pleasure. Please subscribe to all of our platforms, get involved at Triangle Theory. If you've got any comments, or if you want to share any topics that you think that me and Conrad would like to talk about, then please get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
And what's wrong in our lives. So that's essentially the episode is for, practices to overcome it. And I feel like it's going to be a really important one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just in terms of to explain sort of the evolution and sort of why we have anxiety in our system anyway.
Yeah.
It's a fight or flight response. It's an evolutionary mechanism that prepares your body to face or flee danger. And you need this in order to survive. It's that sort of, if you were in a cave and you were faced with danger immediately, you needed it.
You
needed to react, and you needed that sort of adrenaline dump for your body to react in the way for you in order to survive. And I think when you're looking at sort of those neurotransmitters being a chemical messenger in the brain, it plays a critical role in transmitting signals between the nerve cells, so neurons. Those two key neurotransmitters involved in regulating mood, anxiety is serotonin and dopamine. And the difference between serotonin and dopamine is serotonin is often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter. It contributes to feeling of being well and sort of happiness. It also plays to sort of your mood, your appetite, your sleep and digestion. It maintains your mood and balance. So low levels of serotonin are often associated with depression or anxiety. So serotonin being that it stabilizes your mood by preventing excessive neural activity that can lead to anxiety. The anxiety connection with serotonin is that when serotonin levels are low, it can lead to increased anxiety and depressive symptoms. This is why we have antidepressant medications. They're sort of serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So that's basically what an antidepressant is. And then you've got the other neurotransmitter, which is dopamine. I think everyone's kind of more familiar with what dopamine is. So dopamine, obviously, just going into it, is known as the reward transmitter. It's involved with pleasure, motivation, and reward. It plays a significant role into how we perceive pleasure and pain. It's also crucial for motivation and reinforcement learning. Mood regulation. Dopamine influences our mood by affecting the brain's reward and pleasure centers. It helps regulate feelings of motivation, like we've said. anxiety connection. While dopamine is more commonly linked to motivation, the imbalances can also affect anxiety. Too much dopamine in certain areas of the brain can contribute to certain feelings of anxiety. So the interaction and balance. So the balance between serotonin and dopamine is crucial for mental health. Both neurotransmitters interact and influence each other. An imbalance can lead to mood disorders during anxiety and depression. So it's kind of like understanding where it comes from, why we have it, and the role that those two neurotransmitters play in our brain, and the balance between those two that cause anxiety, like too low of serotonin, too much dopamine. The both of them can cause issues. And I think that's why that breath is so important, because it really does modulate the two. It's that sort of that dial that helps you sort of regulate that and sort of stop dumping so much into your brain and having a bit more of a relaxed response to things. That's something that you can do to your body.
Yeah. Oh, that was very interesting. As well, while I was doing the research, I thought that it was important to pull out some statistics. I love looking into statistics. Especially for our people our age. So that was a really interesting one. I'll read it a little bit. So a study conducted by the Mental Health Foundation found that 74% of people aged 18 and 34 reported feeling so stressed at some point that they felt overwhelmed or unable to cope. So I guess that's the panic attack would be the next level of feeling so overwhelmed. And specifically among young adults aged 17 and 23, the prevalence of probable mental health disorders was 27% in 2020. So again, I feel like during COVID and during COVID from 2020 to 2022, 2023 was a staggering amount of people that felt really, really down and depressed, and just because they were like at home, couldn't meet any people. And I guess just for some people, being by themselves is really overwhelming.
For sure. I think sort of being in that sort of time of uncertainty, your body's in that state of fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of ready on having to be prepared for what's going to happen.
But all you can do is just stay at home. And there's some symptoms of anxiety. If you, I don't know, most of the people, I reckon they understand that they feel anxious. But if some people just feeling down or depressed and they don't really know what's happening. So symptoms of anxiety is feeling restless or on edge, being irritable, getting tired easily. I think being irritable and feeling on edge is one of the ones that like I really battle myself sometimes as well. And like I need to get it out, because I feel like I have so much negative energy. I'm getting really irritated by things. Having difficulty concentrating or feeling your mind goes blank. Panic attacks and having tense muscles or struggling to fall asleep. So these are the mainly ones that people feel. And so when was, just a random question, when was the last time you felt anxious, and how did you overcome and how did you battle it?
I'll tell you a story about a personal experience with anxiety that was the first time I really felt it. And the first time I felt like I was really faced with anxiety was when I was faced with a real sort of personal issue where I felt like there would be a judgment on my character negatively by others. And I won't go too much.
What was the situation, if you don't mind sharing?
The situation was...
You don't need to share, by the way.
Yeah, like it was basically a situation where I used to work on boats. There was like an internal, basically, drama with myself and another member of crew. And I felt sort of in that moment, I would be sort of really judged and criticized. And it caused me to have like a real deep fear of extreme anxiety. And I felt really physically sick, like for a period of like 6 days, where I just couldn't shake it. I lost my appetite, and I just felt like I didn't really necessarily understand what that feeling was. I didn't know that that's what anxiety felt like. Mm-hmm. And I was only sort of about 20, 21 at the time. But that was like where I really felt that issue, and I dove a bit deeper into kind of what is it about that fear of judgment that makes me feel really like gives me that sense of anxiety. And I think that sort of reflecting on my childhood, I think there was a significant issue where I felt, sort of going back like we were talking about in the last podcast, I felt like I was disappointing either one of my parents, and I felt like there was a fear of judgment there. And I think that where I was kind of, where that anxiety was coming from was because it was coming from a place of where I was feeling like there was a fear of judgment, was because there was a feeling of judgment from my parents where I wasn't there for either one of them because they were separated.
Have you ever tried to ask them, like, do you judge me because I'm spending time with them?
Yeah, I do that now, and obviously they say no, because I am obviously kind of gone past that. But I think at the time where I was a kid, I kind of felt, and that was just like a survival instinct, you know. But what that happened was that persisted into adulthood, causing me anxiety whenever I felt judged. And I think the breakthrough moment came when I understood that I couldn't please everyone, and that's not very sustainable, and that I must prioritize my own well-being instead of making decisions based on I've got to make decisions based on what's best for me rather than what others might think. And I feel that sort of took that anxiety sort of structure away in that moment, because I think where I felt the fear of being sort of negatively judged by others caused me to have anxiety. I was like, okay, well, what's the cause of that? And sort of going a bit deeper into that and looking at those trigger points, I've realized that was just a survival technique that was from a fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And that to overcome that, I've got to overcome something within myself that, regardless of what other people might think, I know who I am and I know where my values stand, and that kind of eased that sort of initial response with anxiety. So I think that was a really important one for me. And still, you know, there's times of anxiety where I'll wake up in a panic if I've realised I've done something wrong at work, or if there's like, you know, it's a financial issue, or if there's things that are tough. You know, everyone has that fear of anxiety, like it's always there, and that's just, it's the response to something that you're scared of, really. So I think in those moments of fear, it's trying to calm yourself down and bring you back to the reality of how can I best combat.
Just detach yourself from the situation itself, I guess. It's really important to see the situation for what it is, it actually is. Because as people, we tend to imagine that it's going to be way worse than it actually is. You suffer more in imagination than in reality, right? So whatever happens in your life, you start to think, oh, it's going to be the worst thing. I'm going to die. I'm going to get hurt. Like all of these little things, and that's natural because your body is trying to protect you from the possible outcome, no matter if that would be you getting in the ring, you're obviously going to get hurt, or you trying a new job, you might going to embarrass yourself, you're not going to live to someone's expectations. If you trying a podcast, you might going to get judged by other people. All these little things is simply to understand that, all right, my body is just simply trying to protect me. And again, me of gratitude, all right, thank you for protecting me, but I actually want to do this, and once you get into the rhythm, you're not longer afraid of it.
Was there any sort of, or did you have a story where you'd like to share sort of about something where you were sort of faced with anxiety and how that made you feel? Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess, well, till this day, there are many times when I feel anxious. For me, moving to Manchester, I felt a bit, is this the right decision to make? Because I don't know what's going to happen. Moving to Thailand, it was as well like, oh, if I'm going to lose I was really overthinking at that time, because it's like, if I'm going to lose my job, if I'm going to get ill, if like all these little things. And obviously stepping into the ring, because I had an insurance, but
Yeah.
it didn't really protect me from fighting there. So if I'm get hurt, I'm paying like big fines for hospitals, because I'm simply not protected. I was like, you know what, like, if it will happen, it meant to happen. It meant to happen. Is that the right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just kind of take the leap of faith and then do it regardless.
You need that response to protect yourself.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's a really important one to have, and
because you'll make just stupid decisions if you're not going to that protective side of you actually taking care of yourself. If you're just going to look at everything, is going to be fine, and you're not going to any fair, like, you're going to get hurt, and all other things are going to happen to you. So you have to have that protective part of you, but look at it as realistic as possible. Sometimes it just tells you the things that sometimes fear just simply keeps you away from what you want to achieve.
Absolutely, and I really agree with you on that. And like you were mentioning, when you're sort of, even when you're sort of in that fight response, you were thinking like, oh, I don't want to have to pay like hospital fees or things like that. Like, those are all the rational thoughts that's going through your mind to stop you from being hurt. And I think with that, it's important to address that those are natural reactions to have. It's not that you're self-doubting yourself. I mean, it can come across that, but it's basically sort of a response that your body is having, and that's okay. And I think that it's important to be mindful towards that, for sure.
Yeah. I also looked into the most common things that causes anxiety in, again, Gen Z and millennials. So the survey was conducted among 23,000 people in 45 different countries. 45 different countries, including Ireland, and the participants were born between 1983 and 2003, so mainly our generation. And they basically said that one of the biggest and common causes that makes them anxious is just financial insecurity. And I completely get that, because I remember when I moved to London, I tried to save money and I just always felt short of it. Obviously, it was a case of financial illiteracy. Like, I wasn't really aware of how to save and how to set yourself financial goals. I'm feeling like I'm in a lot better position than I used to be, but like 2-3 years ago, I used to try to save like 100 or 200 quid, and then by the end of the month, you just don't have it, and you're like, fuck, like, what am I doing wrong? And you put that pressure on yourself. And then again, another one of the biggest issues was comparing yourself to your peers, like social media. Like, you see your previous classmate just buying a house or like getting married, and you're like, fuck, like I'm not there, and you start to compare yourself in a way.
For sure.
So one of the reasons why I deleted Instagram, because I know that subconsciously, even if I'm not really paying attention to that, subconsciously I'm still going to give some sort of a credit, and like, I'm happy for them, but at the same time it impacts my own mental health. And like, why am I using that? Like, I'm using for the podcast, I'm using it to promote it, but I'm no longer a user for like just looking at what other people do, because all the people is going to post the best
It's a highlight reel.
Yeah, the highlight reel, that's it. They're not going to post like, oh, I've got like 10 quid in my bank account and all of that. So it's really, really important to just to realize that.
It's really funny you mentioned that, because I'm sort of now at the age where guys I knew at school and girls I knew at school, buying houses and getting married and all the rest of it. And that's not where I'm at in my journey, and I'm thankful for that, and I get all that. But does the self?
But it still
does
doesn't.
it still creep in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think there's definitely sort of questions there where I feel, am I making the right choices? I've gone fairly big risk, which could result to my security being compromised. And does that make me feel uneasy and have anxiety? Absolutely. That I'd be stupid not to have those responses. But it's sort of reminding myself that I have to commit and stick to those choices that I've made, because in the end of the day, that's what gives me purpose and understanding. And I think with any, and I've also got to understand it's probably going on in the exact same corner, like when you're fighting and you're going into that ring, your opponent's feeling the exact same
Exactly,
way.
Man. That's it.
And I feel that regardless of any situation, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Like, no matter what situation you're in, you're always going to be having a feeling of anxiety. It's just a natural human response to things. Can you help yourself by having less of sort of like a panic response? Absolutely. I think you can, definitely. And I feel that there are ways to help your body do that. I think that if you assess your diet in the right way.
Yeah, diet is a huge one.
Where you're sort of eating the right foods that allow yourself to sort of produce serotonin and dopamine in the right way, is really important. I think if you're sort of getting the right sleep as well, that's also really, really
important. That's one thing I'm trying to focus on right now, is just not only trying to get up early, but trying to go bed early as well, because and I'm so bad with it till this day. Like I can sleep like 12 hours straight. I just love sleep.
Dude, me too.
And I just hate myself for that.
I know, it's really hard to get up out of bed. Like, even this morning, it was really hard. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. And I'm definitely someone that feels like I can't function in anything less than 6 or even 7.
Oh, mate, 6 is I'm dead.
Yeah.
7, I'm like, I can function.
I mean,
but I need like 8, 9 properly.
Same.
It's great. I just love sleep.
Me too. I could sleep for days. And it's hard because cognitively your body needs that rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you're in a high pressure or high stress environment where, there are maybe people listening to this that are in more high stress environments. I know for me, sort of in hospitality, it's a high stress environment. So my body really feels it, I try and combat that with, the right sleep, the right diet, and exercising as well, like really sort of producing more dopamine in that sort of exercise routine.
With the diet, I'm going to add another 2 cents as well, because I know you don't drink alcohol anymore, and since I moved to Manchester, I really reduced my alcohol intake, and I just, like, whenever I have a drink or 2, I just can feel the impact it has on my like psychology and my mental health. Like, the next 2 days, I'm just anxious. Like, I'm really, really anxious, and I feel like, how is it? Because I'm getting older, or is it because I'm drinking less? And whenever I drink, I have this natural reaction to how I feel, and it feels like I'm eating healthier. And whenever I feel I'm eating like a takeaway or something like junk food, I'm just feeling so bad. Like, I feel it has a direct impact to serotonin and dopamine levels as well. And that's why I feel so anxious.
Absolutely. There's a really good podcast on YouTube. You can type in Andrew Huberman alcohol, and he talks about it in really big detail.
Huberman Lab,
yeah. I know that we're sort of planning to do an episode around it as well, which would be really interesting. But I think where I've tried to cut less sugar out of my diet, and alcohol, it's funny because alcohol is one of those things where it is a drug, but especially in English culture and culture alone, if you're not seen to have a drink, people immediately think that there's something wrong with you.
Alcohol is the only drug that if you don't do, people think
you get
something
this
is off with you.
Yeah, and I've actually had to turn down like events and opportunities for me to go to simply because
You're not drinking.
and like I just know what that's faced with, and it's really sad.
Hey guys, your feedback is very important. And no, this is not an advertisement. Actually, what I'm asking from you is to leave a comment below what you liked and most importantly, what you disliked about this episode, because we can improve on the next episodes and we can make a better content for you to listen. Give us also a topics you'd like to us talking about, and we can prepare, do your research and talk about it on the next episodes. Thank you.
And I'm still trying to work out that space of being comfortable making that decision.
Just to quickly interrupt you, you know liquid death, water.
Yeah.
You know why it's been made?
No, why is
So apparently the idea of that water was it was sold to people. I read it on the internet, so I'm not sure is trust me bro source, but
yeah.
I read it on the internet that it said the initial idea of that liquid death water was to sell to people who is quitting alcohol, but they go into parties and they would drink a can, and other people would think that is a bit
it's like an
can of beer.
Yeah, nice.
So maybe that's something you could
Yeah,
think
stop
of.
drinking
liquid death.
Come up with our own triangle beer.
Yeah.
That's not
Triangle theory beer. Oh,
yeah.
I'll note down.
Nootropic, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that sort of with alcohol, like it tends to be quite like sugar-based drinks, like beer and things like sugary cocktails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it all leads to a really high and then a crash the next
Yeah.
day. And I've never really was a big drinker, and the next day I'd feel far more anxiety-induced like feelings than the night was worth.
Have you ever tried the MD?
Yeah. No,
How do you feel the next day after that?
I've had, it depends on the quality I find. A come down on MD is normally like the day after. I normally sort of combat that by either going for a walk or run. It really helps.
Really?
Yeah. If I can really muster it, because let's say if I took MD on a night out, let's say the night finishes at like 3.
You can't sleep.
But then if you manage to get to sleep, then I probably wake up like, I don't know, just before midday.
I may like.
And then I try and go and get my head clear, because I knew if I'd stayed in bed, I'd feel more worse. So I try and get air fresh. Like.
Yeah. The last time I did it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, in my party days. But again, I agree that it depends on the quality, but I think the ones that we used to be mixed with something. I remember this one time I had it, and the next 2 days I was at the lowest point of my life.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm just gonna kill myself. Like all of these thoughts was just like, fuck, like I just can't handle anymore. So after that I was like, fuck that. I just can't. I don't want to take, like, I know it's a fun night on it, but then the next days are just, like, next 4 days I'm feeling so bad. Like, so bad.
Because all your serotonin's just gone.
Yeah, it's just depleted.
Yeah, and I think MDMA has some, like, positives to it. I think you can take it in a space where it sort of...
Exactly.
I think there are studies now where there's, like, more...
I think they opening one. I know that was a ketamine therapy I've seen. Yeah, sorry.
Ketamine, MD. I think things like what they're saying with like mushrooms and stuff like that are all sort of fairly potentially having their benefits. Yeah. I think with MDMA mixed with alcohol, I think that's the mixture.
Could be.
What? Because I've never done MDMA just on MDMA sober.
Nope.
I've always done it with the mix of alcohol.
Maybe I didn't.
And I think the last time I did it was maybe 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. But I never sort of... It's the same with like cocaine. It's that upper that makes you like confident.
You know what? I don't really like that feeling.
No, I don't either. I don't think...
I'm just not feeling myself.
I don't feel... like I was saying, I think I get anxiety sometimes even in the night if I was drinking alcohol, because I know the next day I'm going to feel shit, and so it kind of takes away from it. I'm not going to say that not drinking alcohol on a night out isn't fun, because I think it's amazing, like it's hilarious, and I think you can have an amazing night out, obviously that's induced by alcohol. I've had incredible nights that have been alcohol based.
Same.
Am I never going to drink ever again? Probably not. But I think right now I'm just in that frame of mind where I don't want to drink. I don't feel like it's doing anything for me right now, in the sense that it doesn't provide me much value.
And how long do you think you're going to keep, like, is there a specific date you want to stop doing it?
So I'm now coming up to, I think, 3 weeks. No, sorry, a month.
Are you going to drink on a camping trip?
We'll see. Like, if the opportunity presents itself and I feel like it's the right moment, then yeah, for sure. I think it's really important sort of within a year to take a month off anyway for anyone. I think it's always quite good to just take that time. Like I've done dry January a couple of times, and that's always been like a nice time to be able to go, don't want to do it. And I think it's a good thing for people to do, because I think the amount of units that you drink within a year, like if you were to really count them up, you'd be like, fuck, it's a lot. But even me now, someone that's single, going on a date with someone, it always revolves around going for a drink and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the
also
thing.
Also really difficult to do.
That's almost go-to now. Like if you're going on a date,
it's like, oh, let's go for a drink.
Let's go drink. Yeah, that's like
and that's really hard. And the last day I was on, which was recently, I had a non-alcoholic drink, and she was like, "What the fuck?"
Really?
Yeah, man. Like generally, it was like, "What do you mean you don't drink?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not drinking right now."
But you know what? Like, I think that you have this judgment. Is that the word? Like, if you're not drinking, that means you're not drinking because you have a problem. You're not drinking out of just, I choose not to drink. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not drinking, are you addicted, or is there something off with you? Like,
yeah. And I think where I'm sort of looking at my life right now and why I've taken that sort of step is because I've been trying to, I think where even for me this year, it's been testing, but in a good way, because there's been a lot of points this year where I've been like combated with, I don't want to say challenges, I want to say more opportunities to grow even in tough challenges or tough opportunities. But I've not seen the benefit of like having alcohol right now. So for me, it's like, even doing my Jiu-Jitsu journey this year, it's just put me in a bit more of a space of doing more physical activity, more mindfulness practice, trying to connect with others in a way where I don't just have like 15 drinking friends where we will just chat nothing, but actually having friends where like you and I, and sort of going on that camping trip was like a bit more intentful kind of connection, instead of just talking about nothing around a pub for a whole weekend, you know, and then feeling sorry for yourself on Monday, and then trying to get back into a week again where
that's the hardest part, to get back into the week, because
you're always on this state of never really getting back into it.
By the time you're getting back into that, you're going back to the pub, innit?
And I think that's what creates more like kind of anxiety. And when I think about sort of the UK and the drinking culture, like I think it's really fun, and I think there are really great social aspects of doing that. But when you look at the rates of depression and the rates of anxiety and, you know, all of that, you can only look at, well, are we helping ourselves, you know?
You can't blame alcohol for all of it, obviously.
No, obviously not.
But it definitely plays a part. It definitely plays a part.
Definitely.
So I'm completely with you. So, practical techniques to overcome anxiety. I guess you mentioned diets, exercise. I guess any sort of exercise would help you to reduce. Yeah. Like there's thousands of studies made on the benefits of exercising and how to reduce your stress levels. And no matter if you do 20 minutes of skipping rope or do 10 burpees, 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, jog for a bit, like just get your blood flowing and you'll reduce those stress levels and reduce the anxiety, mate. Like literally, I remember last week I came back home, and I felt just off, like felt stressed. And my girlfriend and I, we just went for a walk and we got lost a bit, like in this forest, and it took us like 2.5 hours to get back home. And by the time I was back, I was like, yeah, I'm feeling much better. It's just I walked a bit and just I did a simple walk and it's way better. But all the time, and I said so many times in this podcast, that combat sports for me was just this thing that as soon as I step on these mats, or as soon as I step in the gym of Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu, literally all my worries are gone. I'm just concentrating on that hour or two on that specific task, and no matter what problems I have before training, after training, I sweat a little bit, I socialize with people, I have a good time, I release a lot of negative energy, and then that walk on the way back home is the best. Like you walking back and like, you know what, like actually it's not that bad.
It's so true. It's being present on the mats, and I get it so much, and then releasing that dopamine.
And it forces you to be present, because if you're not going to concentrate on the task at hand, you simply get hurt.
Yeah.
You're gonna get tapped. You're going to get let the dominant position, and it forces you to be in that present state. That's why I recommend everyone to get into combat sports.
Yeah, just getting into something that actually allows you to switch off and be present. And that's why the difference between when I would go to the gym is that I'd be on my phone a lot more in the gym.
Exactly.
You can't be in jiu-jitsu, and that for me was like removing that thing straight away. And also like you were saying, being around other people, connecting on a thing that you enjoy, like a hobby or a sport that you enjoy, that allows you to be present. So not only are you kind of releasing dopamine and sort of having that sort of energetic kind of boost from doing a physical sport, but you're actually interacting with other people socially. And, that's kind of where I think, things unwind, like you're doing past the guard or sort of doing close guard, and then all of a sudden you're like catching up and being like, how was your day, man? And then you're like, yeah, my day was good. And then you're doing a bit of close guard, and you realize like, actually, I don't know, I feel like I'm just stress releasing.
You start to talk, innit?
You start to talk.
It's like, mate, the amount of times Charlie and I, because I think we connected so well with Charlie, because every time we come in Jiu-Jitsu, and we used to do the same classes, like only gi, and every time we start rolling, and obviously Martin was always like, let's start with the close guard, and we start drilling close guard, and Charlie and I were like, should we do it? Like, should we go to go? Yeah, like, we'll do it. And then as soon as we start rolling, we're like, how was your day?
Yeah.
Oh man, like it was good. And then sometimes I listen to Charlie, his problems, and it's like a therapy, man. And every time after every session, I just feel like I exercise, and at the same time I had this open conversation on how I actually feel about the problem that I have, or maybe not even a problem, maybe it's something good happened and I just wanted to share with someone, and they were listening, and that's really important, man. This really is like,
it's a really good connection point. And I can't remember his name. He goes to
Jiu-Jitsu.
Carson Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu, and he was listening to one of the episodes, and we were drilling, and he was like, I really like the point that you made in this previous podcast, and like he opened up a bit about sort of him and his wife, and he was like, yeah, I've been coming to jiu-jitsu like 3 times a week, twice a week, and you know sometimes she has a problem with it. But for me, like he was like, I need it because it's the headspace I need because work is really stressful.
Yeah.
I've got kids that are really stressful, and like she's really stressful.
Mate, life is hard,
you-
especially when you have kids and wife, and you have to provide, and everyone have these expectations. You have to have some sort of a space where you're just doing it for the sake of yourself. That's the only way you do it.
For sure. And like I could see that it was this space where it was like relieving a sense of anxiety. It was just being that in that present with other individuals that you like to get on with.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important is doing anything physical will always promote you having a better mood. Like I always felt better leaving than I did coming in.
100%.
And I kind of live for that feeling. Like I go, even if I feel tired and shit, I'm like, I have to just to chase that feeling.
That's the time when you have to go. Like the amount of times I spoke with Brian, our friend, and the amount of times I was like, man, I really didn't want to come today, but I just did it because I know how I'm going to feel afterwards. Like the hardest part is to drag yourself into the gym. Once you're in the gym, once you start moving, first 5 minutes maybe you're going to be a bit rusty, but then that's it. Like as soon as you break a sweat, done.
Those are sometimes the best sessions as well.
Best sessions as well, yeah. Best sessions.
Kind of when you get into it and you're just like in it, and then you're like walk away and you're like, oh, I feel like I really overcame. And it's those days that compound over time that allow you to be more sort of ready for those kind of times. And I think sort of combating anxiety and recognizing anxiety, it's really important to sort of, got it here, is like common symptoms seem to be like we were saying, an increased heart rate, sweating, having restlessness or fatigued or trouble concentrating, sleep disturbances. And I think the most important way is to kind of first realize what it was, because in sort of my story I shared earlier, I didn't really know what it was or how to combat it, and I think that that's why it went on for an extended period of time of like 6 days. And I think it's remembering that it's okay to have that fight or flight response, and looking at what it is that you can do to change, like looking at sort of breathing, physical activity, whether it's journaling, talking to someone, like all of those things that are going to help you kind of release that body response.
Yeah, and I noticed as well, like if you exercise, you do your walks, you do your jiu-jitsu, you do your Muay Thai, you eat healthy, you have a great social circle where you talk with people, you have a good bond with your friends, and then you eat healthy, you meditate, you journal, you do all of these things to take care of your mental and physical health, but you still feel shit again. Just talk. Maybe therapy again would help you to reduce the anxiety. Maybe it's coming from your childhood trauma that you have to battle again, and they don't sponsor us yet, BetterHelp, but
it's a really
but
good
they
thing.
will one day, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just go BetterHelp, choose a therapist, and just start talking with professionals. And there's nothing wrong with talking about your mental health.
There was also something that I found really interesting as well in my research, is that anxiety can be a double-edged sword. And as well as it being talked about as a negative thing, there's also positives in it. Sort of like, again, like we were saying, looking at those silver linings in things where at the end of the day, you are in a heightened state of alertness, and that can help you stay focused to perform better in situations that require quick thinking and action.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one really good thing, or one, I suppose I can kind of relate when you were sort of going in that ring, when you felt anxiety.
Yeah, I was about to say that, yeah.
When you're sort of in that state of anxiety, it's the same bodily response that you have when you're excited.
Yeah.
So you're just telling your brain that you're excited for this and that this is a good thing. and that can sort of be motivational anxiety, if you would say. So you're kind of pushing yourself on the task at hand, and it shows that you don't become complacent, and it keeps you engaged and attentive in sort of. So I remember I was feeling one thing where I was doing public speaking, and I'm terrible at it. And
you did public speaking?
I did public speaking.
Oh, wow.
I really want to do it again.
Yeah, I'd like to do it as well.
There's actually a course you can do. It's like a day thing where you can learn how to be a better public speaker.
Send me that afterwards, please.
Well, we should do it together.
I'd love to.
It's only a day, and I don't think it's that much. I think it's like 120 quid or something like that.
Man.
But the idea is that I think it's quite a big group of people that do it, and at the end of it, you're speaking in front of that group.
And what are you talking about? You choose your own.
I think you choose your own topics and stuff like that.
Let's talk about self-development.
I think
about triangle theory.
Yeah, promote it. But yeah, it's like, I think it's one of the. I remember the first time I did public speaking, I was really stressed and really underprepared for it, and I couldn't look at the crowd. It was terrible. I bombed really hard, and I think everyone else knew on stage that, fuck, this guy's pretty nervous. But what it taught me was that before going on stage, I tried to be a bit more of an excited state, being like, I'm actually going to talk about something I want to talk about. But had I not done that, I wouldn't have known that I needed to work better on it as well. Yeah, so I think there was also a positive to that as well. So I think, sometimes it's not always a negative thing to be in that response. Like try and look at it as at least your body is having a response to something, because that means that thing is important, regardless of whether it's anxiety or an excited response. Your body is responding to it, so therefore it must be important to you. And that's an important thing to recognize as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, man.
There's also saying using anxiety as a planning tool. So using it as a signal to prepare and plan effectively when we feel anxious at an upcoming deadline or event, it can prompt us to start actually doing what it is that we want to do and not postpone it.
Exactly. Again, I think I mentioned in the previous episode, but just by thinking about the thing, you're not moving forward. Only by doing it, you actually can achieve results. So it's all about, even if you feel that anxiety, just do the thing. Cerebral question?
You go first, because I did the last one.
Cool. All right. Physical health versus mental health. Which one do you think is most important? And you can give your own take on that.
I mean, they're just as important as each other. Like, I remember growing up, my granddad would always say, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing. And I don't think he just meant physical, because I think physical we take for granted, obviously. Like, we only really recognize something's physically wrong with us when something's physically wrong with us. But mental health now, I think, is becoming more of an increased importance.
It's getting more eyes on it, definitely. And I think I asked you the question, but to add to it, I don't think one can correlate without the other one. One can't coexist without the other one.
Totally agree.
Because if you're going to be in a bad shape physically, naturally your mental health going to suffer. And alternatively, if you're going to have some mental health issues, you naturally going to struggle to drag yourself to the gym, to look after yourself, and you have to kind of look after both of them.
I think it's to say which one is more important. I think they're both as important as each other, right? And I think that, like you were saying, they coexist within each other, and your physical accounts so much for how your mental state is, and your mental state has such an effect on your physical state. And I think that's just recognizing that those two, in order to have full sort of health, it's not just looking at your body, but how is your mind and body, how are they working together? I think that's when you start looking at your overall health. And I think now that we're sort of looking more at mental, but when I think about a healthy individual, I think, how is he mind and body? Like, he could look jacked, but he can feel like shit, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
My question to you, I suppose it's kind of one that we've kind of covered, but whenever you're, just as like advice to the listener, if you're in a state of anxiety and you're feeling that fight or flight response, what's your immediate response to either reduce it or live with it?
Well, it depends on the situation, obviously.
Let's say,
scenario.
because I'm always really interested in sort of your fighting experience. So like when you're going into that battle, let's say, because you're confident like with it.
Every time is different, man. I'm not the person to talk because I didn't fight that many times, but when I did, every time was really different. So first time I felt excited. Somehow I felt excited because it was like, oh, I'm fighting the first time in Thailand. It's going to be very interesting, like people watching me. I wasn't nervous at all, and I was quite curious why I wasn't cautious of why I'm so relaxed. But I felt really great. Second time I was shitting myself, man.
Really?
I was literally sitting down and my opponent was sitting down here, so I could talk with him. I could really literally touch him. And we were sitting down here, and he looked at this Thai guy. He was older than me, but his face was covered in scars because he just loves elbows, innit? I was like, oh fuck, what am I doing? And I'm just sitting down, and that time I really felt extremely scared. I was like, what the fuck am I doing right now? But then once you're in there, the bell rings, you forget everything, you just do it. But that showed in my performance that time, because I was really, really scared, and my body language showed it. So the next time, the third time when I fought in Thailand, I made sure that I was like, I don't care about winning or losing. All I'm focusing on this time is just being present, being in the moment, and not reacting to his attacks too much. And that's what I did. Like I didn't win that fight, my third one, but I was a lot happier than my previous performance, even though I won that one. So yeah. But I guess breathing techniques, man, like it really helps you to calm down, to bring your breath to the present moment, and just focusing on the present moment. And if you actually have something upcoming, as an example, you got a job presentation to do tomorrow and you're very anxious today, just go gym, man. Go Jiu-Jitsu, that's it. Go combat sports, release that negative energy. And I'm not talking like specifically combat sports. Do what you like in terms of exercise, no matter tennis, dancing, or
lean into self-care. I think go and do what relaxes you.
Release that negative.
Whether it's like releasing dopamine by going for a walk or run, or doing something that's like maybe physical. Making sure you get a good night's sleep, have like something to eat that's relatively sort of like healthy. And then sort of go down that list of mindfulness practice, meditation, breathing, journaling, reaching out to a friend, connecting with people. Having a laugh, I think, is also really, try and make light of the situation that you're in. I'm always I grew up in a household where there were testing times for sure, and it was not an easy place to grow up, but I also remember laughing a lot as a kid, and you've always got to have a laugh. And I always try to have that enjoyment, whether it was with Emily and Charlie taking the piss out of things or trying to make fun of each other. I remember laughing a lot and still laugh a lot. And there's something really playful in that removes anxiety. So like sometimes as well, for my own comfortability, I'll put on something lighthearted or something that I know that will make me laugh, like a comedian or something like that. Because I know that that's important. You know.
What's your favorite comedian?
So many. I really like that crowd of like Theo Von, Shane Gillis.
Oh yeah.
I really like Bill Burr. I really like Joe Coy as well.
Joe Coy, I don't know.
He's hilarious. He's from the Philippines.
Mm.
You'll really like him. There's some great comedians. Sarah Silverman's hilarious.
What do you think about Andrew Schultz?
I like him. His crowd work's really good.
I think he's amazing at like, wherever he's going, he's got a good understanding of the culture.
Yeah.
Have you seen him in Liverpool or Manchester?
No.
And he was talking about like the difference between Scousers, and they're like, oh, you can't really see them because from far they look just yellow because the girls like to put a fake tan
on. Yeah.
I was just like, fucking hell, he's so good, man. One of the like Chris Rock, I really like Chris Rock. Yeah, some good comedians out there.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's like just having there's this other guy called he was blowing up on TikTok and Instagram called Morgan J, and he does this like auto tune stuff, and he's like sings with the crowd, and some of it's so funny, and like he's just very good at playing off intuitively with the crowd. And like there's a really good comedy show here in London called Secret Comedy Club, and it's only like £5-10 for a ticket, but the comedians that they have on there are amazing, and I try and get down there at least like every.
Where is it?
It's in Covent Garden.
Oh, I went to one in Liverpool Street.
Potentially the same company, I'm not sure.
Because I think it was called Secret Comedy. But mate, we literally went downstairs and it was like 2 rows of chairs.
Yeah.
5 people in it. And the comedian was working on the how do you call it?
Is that on the crowd, like on the 5 people? Or is he
No, but they work in their own content, as in like they created it and they just was working what's working, what's not.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting experience because I went to Louis CK once. It was good, but obviously there was an arena of people. But when you go there, you actually see the real work of a comedian. I think it's one of the hardest jobs.
Yeah, it's
ever.
insane. I remember Charlie wanted, because Charlie's hilarious. That was Charlie, my brother. I remember at one point was like writing material to do it, and I was like, you should do it. Yeah, and fair enough. Like to think about. I don't know if he would or if he still wants to now, because this was quite a long time ago. But an old colleague of mine, his wife did it. And she wrote her own material and got in front of people and did it, and it was a big thing for her. And I was like, the amount of balls it takes to go up and try and make people laugh is.
I did an open mic once.
Did you?
Not comedy, but I sang.
Oh fuck!
And that was fucking terrifying, man.
Would you say it was more terrifying than going into that ring with that guy?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
It was 100%.
Goes to show, hey. I think there's a lot to be said for comedians and
yeah,
even open mics. Even
the thing is, like
like
comedian, because you write your own content and you go into the stage and imagine you tell your jokes and everyone is just like.
That's the thing, like you.
And then you got hecklers, like, may get off.
Because you're essentially going up in front of a crowd and directing people. You've got to, yeah. I can't imagine, but going off topic, but coming back to it. Thank you to everyone that's made it this far. Thank you so much for listening to us. As always, we will see you in the next one. Any comment, feedback, or anything down, please let us know by getting in touch with us, either on Instagram or just direct message and things like that. But yeah, we will see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.